You can fake metrics in Google Analytics, right? And call it conversion, whatever you want. But one thing you can't fake is revenue. At the end of the day, we've built a platform that makes it easy for contractors to measure marketing success and revenue, not just like clicks and leads.
So, hey guys, I'm here with Kevin Lesage. Really excited. Kevin Lesage is he's the CEO of SearchLight. SearchLight is it's kind of quickly becoming my go-to recommendation to business owners as they're looking at their marketing mix. And the big reason is because, if you're trying to make any decisions about marketing, you really need to know the data, and that's what SearchLight really helps home service companies with. So Kevin, you want to maybe just start off, give people like an intro to like what SearchLight does,
Yeah.
and yeah, just to start.
Yeah, of course. And you just said it, right? Like you need the data. If you can't improve what you don't measure, I always say, right? And you could, as an agency or a contractor, trust me, there's plenty of places to go get data, right? Paralysis by analysis, if anything, right now. But the difference in the unique competitive advantage with Searchlight is we're not just pulling data that exists in other platforms and making it look pretty in a separate dashboard. What we're doing is we've invented new ways to like store, manage, and query data, which means Searchlight is really a data matching company. So we match data from Google Ads, Bing, Facebook, LSA. We match that to website conversions like phone calls, chats, forms, and schedule engine. So now I know that this conversion came from a person that clicked this ad, right? And then we scan your CRM every single night and we match that data. So basically, I know Kevin Lesage clicked, let's say, this PMAX campaign on Google Ads. He came to the website and he filled out a form or he called. So now I know Kevin Lesage came from this campaign. And then I'm scanning your CRM looking to see if that call from Kevin actually booked. And if you booked the job, did you run the job? What was the estimate worth? Did you sell the estimate all the way through to close, where I can accurately measure customer acquisition cost, average ticket, regardless of some of the inconsistencies we were finding across different CRMs, where humans are asking, how did you hear about us, and manually selecting campaigns. Searchlight's ignoring that, and we're using our own logic to map the entire customer journey from first clicking that campaign to calling the form or whatever the conversion is, then to the book job and all the way through to closed in the CRM. So the cool thing really about Searchlight is we're not another digital marketing data company that's going to throw all these new metrics at a contractor and just kind of confuse them or try to dance around the real issue. We're going to measure success by how many estimates did you get, what's your booking rate, what's your average ticket. And we've built this whole platform that uses their language, right? So you're not going to see cost per click and click-through rate and impression share and all of these what we call like vanity metrics in Searchlight. You're going to see, what did I spend and what did I earn, and where is that money right now? Is it in an open estimate? Is it a sold job that's not completed, or is this completed revenue? And my dad's been a plumber my entire life, and he's real old school, no CRM. It's just him and my brother in a small business in Connecticut. And he would look at my platform early on and he would immediately be asking the right questions. And he immediately picked it up because it's in his language again, right? So the real takeaway is this is a data platform for contractors to really have control over what's happening with their marketing spend, right? Are we getting a real return? Are the leads quality or not? Are we managing the leads correctly? What is it actually costing me to get a paying customer with this particular campaign? Because you know this, Mike, but like you can fake metrics in Google Analytics, right? And call it conversion, whatever you want. But one thing you can't fake is revenue. So at the end of the day, we've built a platform that makes it easy for contractors to measure marketing success and revenue, not just like clicks and leads.
One thing that I think is really interesting is because I speak with business owners all the time, and I get this sense that they feel like they need to like trust the agency that they're working with. They're like, the thing that I always hear is like, I'm just a plumber, I don't know about this marketing stuff. I'm just an HVAC guy, I don't know about this marketing stuff. And what I've kind of learned and what I really love about like what you're bringing to the market here is that really like, sure, you need to know something about like these marketing campaigns that you're doing, but at the end of the day, it really just boils down to cost per lead, cost per appointment, cost per, job, and then your return on investment. Like that's all that really matters, and if you're able, if as a business owner, if they're able to really just like have a clear understanding of that data, you don't need to be an expert in SEO. You don't need to be an expert in PPC. And, kind of like to hell with all those other metrics, because like, again, cost per lead, cost per appointment, cost per job, your return on investment. So what I think is kind of frustrating is like, there's a lot of tools out there that say that they're delivering that, like I feel like House Call Pro, Service Titan, like, like, isn't that like what they do? And so why is that not the case? Why is Searchlight, doing so well if people quote unquote already have that out of the box with Service Titan and House Call Pro?
Yeah, the first thing I'll talk to that, but the first thing is like you just mentioned that funnel, right? Cost per lead and like the 4 KPIs that really matter. I actually boil it down to just customer acquisition cost and average ticket, right? And I can go deeper for different arguments, but at the end of the day, I just want to know, what does it cost me to acquire a customer and what am I making on average from that investment, right? And at the end of the day, if my cost per lead is really expensive, that's usually a red flag. But to your point, if I can prove downstream that I might be paying $500 to acquire this lead, but on average, I'm yielding a $12,000 average ticket, it changes the conversation quite a bit, right? We're not as concerned about the lead cost when I definitively know, and that's the difference. We're not just throwing money in a black hole, right? But I know it's working downstream. So now all of a sudden, instead of pausing a campaign with a high cost per lead, I want to know, what's my impression share? Is there room to spend more if this is working really well, right? And at the end of the day, like, and I have funny stories from years in automotive with this too, but you can't build when you build a data platform, if you have human input to the data, it's just a crack in the foundation, right? So when you look at very high level, what Searchlight's doing that might be different from others in the market is there's just no human entering any of the data. It's all what we're doing is pulling in data direct from its source. So how do I know the forms came in? Because I have a tag to see every form. How do I know all the calls? Because I integrate with CallRail, what call tracking metrics, what converts, right? Like I get all the data right from the source. So at that point, we're not leaning on a CRM to have accurate data for Searchlight to be accurate. We just took control of the accuracy ourselves. And we've integrated with like 10 different CRMs. So I can't lean on logic from different CRMs because at the end of the day, I'll just have a mess of data if I have, if I'm just pulling it all in from House Call Pro, Sarah, Service Titan, Field Edge, like the logic won't align if you've got groups with multiple CRMs, right? The data won't be apples to apples. So at the end of the day, all we really take out of a CRM is the customer name, email, phone number, and the value of the jobs in the business unit. So the campaign source, new versus existing customer, even estimated totals, because we have logic that looks at multiple estimates different than a lot of CRMs, right? Like what's the value of a job with 5 estimates? Is it the most expensive estimate? Is it the middle one? Is it the least expensive? Is it all of them, right? There's like, there's different logic that we built in the Searchlight that's different than other CRMs out there.
So you have so that's one of the ways that it's different than like the data or the reporting you get from Service Titan or House Call Pro, is that you guys are like, you have specific logic to it. Like I remember you were telling me about like kind of when you started Searchlight, that before you were an agency and you were seeing some inconsistencies around a pay-per-click campaign. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that story and what issues you were facing when you were looking at the Service Titan data?
Yeah, this is cool because like Searchlight was created out of need, right? So to back up a little bit about why or how Searchlight started was my dad, like I said, is in the industry. And I started running some pay-per-click and some Facebook ads for friends and family in the space, right? And it kind of scaled a little bit. And we had some larger clients sign up that said, like, we really like you guys. And, your Google Analytics reports look cool, but we have to cancel after like 6-8 months because our CRM is showing that Searchlight's not working. And I'm lucky enough to have like 13 years of digital marketing and analytics and attribution background. So I asked these clients, I said, hey, can we just get a login to whatever you're looking at to grade SearchLight, right? And we get into the CRM, and it was immediate that we found that it wasn't that we weren't driving revenue, it's that the customers we were driving were misattributed in the campaign source, right? So it looked like SearchLight was driving no revenue, but when we did our manual audit, what we did is basically like we would listen to a call that we knew came from pay-per-click, right? And let's say Kevin Lesage called and spoke to a CSR for 20 minutes and booked an appointment for Friday. I would wait until like Monday or the next day, and I'd log in to the CRM and I'd wait to find Kevin Lesage because I know he just called from my PPC ad, right? And then I'd find Kevin in there with the open estimate because they did the appointment the day before, but the open estimate campaign source didn't say SearchLight. It would say like existing or internet or any other marketing campaign, right? Schedule engine, whatever it might be. And we would show our customer this, and at first he was like, "There's no way, like, you know, you're not right," basically.
Yeah.
And when we sat down with them for 3 months and like 300 customer calls and proved this over time, eventually he said to us, like, you know, this isn't a SearchLight problem. This is an industry problem, right? And I'm lucky enough to have worked with like PhD level, you know, data engineers that have built the largest analytics platform in all of automotive, right? So like when I found this problem, I basically said, like, I don't want to be an agency. I'd much rather solve this problem and then help other agencies and help other contractors better manage their marketing returns, right? So it just goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where if you have human input to the data, you're getting inaccuracies. And then you have partners all across the US that are spending millions of dollars on marketing on using this data. And if it's not accurate, you know, we're putting ourselves in a bad situation.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to think that, you know, you could just be getting half of the story from Service Titan, you know, or House Call Pro. Like, and this is not like, you know, to trample on them. I mean, those are amazing tools. We recommend to our clients that they use them. I know SearchLight is built off of, you know, that those CRMs as well, you know, but like the truth is that, you know, you're not getting like 100% accuracy if you're just basing it off of those reports. And, you know, it's kind of wild though. Like, you know, like what percentage accuracy do you think it's even possible to get on these campaigns? Because, you know, in marketing, you have like, there's so many steps within, you know, a marketing funnel before somebody gives a call, you know? And so like, what do you think about that? Or like, what do you know, how do you approach that?
Yeah. So we're getting into like attribution views here,
Attribution. Yeah.
right? So at the end of the day, who's getting credit, what we say for the lead and then for the job. And I don't want to turn this into an attribution discussion because, you know, we could spend all different days. I mean, what you were just mentioning is called weighted attribution, right? Where a customer might get a direct mail and then later on convert through PPC or something. So what we want to be able to do is say the mailer first drove this event, and then this event, the lead event, drove the booking event, right? And without getting way too technical, SearchLight's whole platform is built on a time-based event structure. So it's very unique when you look at data platforms in the sense that we have every timestamp for every event. And the first one is the lead was submitted, right? So I know when the lead was submitted, I know when the booking happened, I know when you ran the estimate, I know if you sold the job, and I know when the invoice went out, because all of those are different events happening in the CRM. So long story short, we give credit to the lead or the marketing source that drove the lead. But the bigger thing that I see not discussed a lot is if someone calls 4 different times from 4 different marketing sources, who gets credit for the job? Right? That's not even the marketing source getting credit for the call. I'm talking about 4 calls and which call gets credit for the job. So like we have logic that says we can see like the call that came in that sparked the booking in the CRM, right? And any calls after that shouldn't be getting credit for that job because that could be the homeowner calling in and asking, where's the tech or all of this, but
Sure.
calling through GBP and you're registering that call tracking number to the job, all of a sudden it looks like that call is getting credit for something that it shouldn't be. So yeah, there's long story short, we have all of the event structure, so we can look at multiple different attribution views in our data set. But there's a lot of opinions around attribution. We try to simplify it as much as possible.
Well, what I think is really great, and this is just, I don't know. I mean, this is like about just business in general, is this idea that, you've got, I can imagine like a business owner out there who's got a successful company, maybe they're listening to this call right now and they're just like, yeah, I just want to find out, like, I know that I'm getting multiple touches on my marketing. How do I decide what percentage, or how do I account for this? And it's like, you might be approaching that question for the very first time, or maybe it's like one of the millions of questions that you ask yourself about your business in like a given month or whatever. But you got Kevin here who, like, that's like literally his entire job, is figuring out like the most accurate answer to that question. And so, the fact that you've got that, and then you've built all of the, you've answered it for yourself to the best of your ability with superior experience, and then you built like a platform around it. I mean, that's pretty cool. And, that's a really interesting thing for business owners to be able to leverage. Another question I had for you, Kevin, is kind of like, what's like your sweet spot in terms of company size that where like they really should start paying attention to this?
Well, obviously, if you're spending a lot of money a month in marketing, it makes sense to put 0.01% aside for SearchLight to understand how it's being leveraged and what the return looks like, right? Because our retail price is $4.99. So just at a basic economy, right? Yeah, per month. So basic economy, if you're spending like some of our clients, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, this makes sense, right? Better data, with better data, smarter decisions, with smarter decisions, better return. But even like we have a lot of large clients, but even we have a lot of smaller clients too, right? Because at the end of the day, these non-PE backed groups or individual businesses that we work with, they care a lot more, I think, about, or not even more, but they care a lot about that dollar, and they're concerned to invest. They have a lot of doubts, right? PE and like large groups are like spending money because that's like the fuel the fire. But a lot of our smaller accounts are just need some tool to build trust, like you were talking about earlier, and like have confidence to continue to invest. So a lot of our accounts are like those smaller groups that might be spending $5,000 a month, right? But now they can incrementally invest more and more each month on their media spend with proven ROI.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the best example is one of the agencies we brought on. And this applies to every contractor that uses an agency to run their ads. The agency said, like, after their first month, we got on a call and they're like, you just changed our business. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, we've always optimized accounts for what had low cost per click and high lead volume. But now we're seeing downstream that those are not generating a lot of revenue, right? What looked good wasn't working. But those expensive clicks that didn't get a lot of leads, the leads that we did get booked at 80% and drove $12,000 average tickets. So now all of a sudden you have agencies not trying to drive cost per click decrease month over month,
or even cost per call.
Cost per call, anything. You've got them worried and motivated and optimized off driving revenue, right? Because they don't want to get on the call with you and say the return on advertising last month was 3x. They want to get on and say it was 10x, right? So they are constantly motivated now at what matters most for your business too, not just what matters most for an agency. So I think that's like the biggest thing that SearchLight brings to the table.
That puts like a huge smile on my face, because it's just like thinking about, the implications there, what you can do with the data, what an agency can do with that data, what a business owner can do with the data. I remember, in one of the very first interactions we had, and as I was learning about SearchLight, I asked you, so, all right, come on, Kevin, tell me who's the best agency? What's the best agency out there? Who's got like the best pay-per-click? And you surprised me with your answer, because you said that the best campaign you saw wasn't actually done by an agency, it was done by an individual. Can you maybe, obviously without like revealing too much, but can you tell me a little bit, can you share that again?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cool story, right? I mean, we've onboarded 800 HVAC and plumbers in 2 years, right? And a lot of like 20 plus private equity groups, 20 plus agencies. So we see a lot of success and a lot of failure. Very quickly, it's obvious in our data. A lot of calls, no revenue, we got a problem, right? Like we can quickly figure this out. And there was just an interesting story one time where and I will never say one agency is better than the other. They all have their strengths, but one thing they all share in common is they're all not perfect. I've been in an agency world for 13 years. The whole game of an agency is to figure out what works and what doesn't and constantly reinvest, right? Nothing's always perfect. But the funny story is, one of the best ad accounts we ever saw was actually managed in-house by a contractor, right? And obviously it wasn't the plumber GM managing it. He had hired someone, but I was just blown away. And by blown away, the booking rate on the leads, right? That's how I'm going to define quality of leads, what percent are booking. I mean, it was just a phenomenal booking rate, right? And the average we see right now is 45%, right? So raw, there's no filters. So we're not saying the call has to be 60 seconds or anything like that. I'm saying the phone rang. On average, what percent of those are booking, right?
45%. What were these guys doing?
It was upwards of like 70,
Oh my gosh.
you know.
So it was like a full
And then think about it.
50% better.
Yeah, I mean, there's variables to this. It could have been a small radius, right? It could have been on a
Great
couple.
CSR.
It could have just been like all on water heaters or whatever, right? Because that's where the profit was, and we weren't spreading thin across all of our business units. But at the end of the day, if I turn on an account and I see that you're spending, $5+ grand with a 70% booking rate and a ROAS of 20x, you've got my attention. You know what I mean? And that's what we'll see that sometimes.
That's wild. Yeah. So what you're saying is that, because I feel like I run into this in SEO a lot, and pay-per-click is this idea of, hey man, there's no secrets, like, hey, there's no, like, it's all the same. We're all doing the same, but what I'm actually hearing is there's actually some dramatically different approaches that
Oh my God.
a person can take that will lead to dramatically different results in these campaigns.
I'll just say like the biggest trend right now across PPC you're probably familiar with. I was just at Google in Chicago talking with them and like 9 private equity groups about this is conversion value bidding. Right? Like here's an example of if you want efficiency and like not have to spend more but get more out of what you're doing. The only way you bring a competitive advantage to the table is through data. So without spending a lot of time on this, it's like right now, and you're probably my guess set up for like max conversions in your MCC.
I'm more of an SEO guy. Like I've got
Okay,
people on
cool.
the team running our pay-per-click. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
like you log into Google Ads and you basically select what you want to optimize towards.
Yeah.
And 99% of agencies today are set up for max conversions, which means I want more leads, right? Very simple. And what happens is when you click a campaign, a Google click ID is followed over to the website and you have conversion goals set up. So now you can say, hey, this click from a campaign is on my website and they called. So send that call back to Google and get more calls.
We got it. We got an event. Yeah.
That's the conversion event.
Yeah.
But what's happening is on our data, it shows, I was just talking, 45% book. So 55% of your unique leads never even book. So why are you sending back the leads that don't book to Google?
Yeah, because they'll get you more of that.
They're just going to get you more of these bad calls that weren't booking.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're doing at SearchLight, and we're not managing the ads, we're just providing the data, but this is where not every agency is the same, is we're holding on to that Google click ID after the phone call, and we're waiting to see if that call books in the CRM or not. If it books in the CRM, then we send it back. So now I can weed out all the calls that never booked, right? I can read all the calls, forums, chats, everything that never booked, and only send back the conversions that are actually booking.
Yeah. And then Google optimizes for those types of calls.
Now you're optimizing towards booked jobs, not conversions. And that is a completely different shift in the way you're optimizing your business.
How many percentage of like companies are doing that, do you think, right now?
I mean, if I just blanket it like under 1%, under 0.1%.
Get out of here, really?
I mean,
That's
most
wild.
agencies, it's a struggle for the agency. And if your agency's doing it, in most cases, they're doing it off just the phone call.
Yeah.
But there's more than just the phone calls. Like we see across our platform, 38% of revenue comes from outside call tracking. So it's the form submissions, the chats, the schedule engines, right?
Mhm.
And if you're only sending back the conversion values of your phone calls, then you're missing out on all of those other conversions, right? Like the forums and the
Yeah.
chats.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so
Do they need Searchlight in order to optimize the campaigns this way, or do some agencies just do it, independent?
it's very difficult to do independently. I'm not gonna like I know some are doing it. Um, I don't know if they're doing it across the forums and chats and schedule engines. It might just be the phone calls, right? And
Mm.
if that's the case, you're missing almost 60% of the
Yeah,
revenue. Um,
that is it's absolutely wild. So I feel like we're like getting like super into these details because I mean, as an agency owner,
right.
I'm like, what? It's very exciting that way. What I thought was really interesting earlier is you mentioned that there's really just the two metrics that you look at, which was cost per acquisition and average ticket. So if I look at that, it's like, all right, well, cost per acquisition, what do you, when you look at those two metrics, like how do you, what's your context? What's your thinking around them as it relates to like quality, as it relates to cost? Like, how do you view those two metrics and what are those two metrics really telling people?
Yeah, like, and just to be blunt with your audience, like I'm the farthest thing from a data scientist, right? I'm just like like again, I was like raised by my dad who's a plumber. So when we look at remind me again here, what was your comment on customer acquisition cost and average ticket? Very
Yeah.
simple. Like, don't overcomplicate this. I don't want to be paying more to acquire a customer than I'm making on the job. If my customer acquisition cost is $1,000 and my average ticket is 600, then we've got something backwards here, right? Like, let's just start there. And 30% of all campaigns across our platform show that, right? Because without Searchlight, you're not getting that accurate data. You're going to continue to spend because the cost per click and cost per lead looks good, but downstream you're paying more than you're earning on the leads. Like you can't continue this, right? So stop the bleeding. Step one. It's very simple. You call your agency. This isn't working. What can we do to turn it around with this campaign? Not the relationship, but is there more we can do with the campaign? If not, let's move the money behind this other campaign that has a 10x ROAS, right? Like it's real simple. But if you can't fix a bad performing campaign with strategy, I'm not going to continue to literally waste money and like visually see that every month that I'm spending more to acquire the customer than I am on the job. And for like plumbers and those smaller average ticket, businesses, it's critical. You can't be going to a house for a faucet exchange when you spent $800 on the lead, right? That's where it's like you got to know your profitable jobs so that we can go all in on those campaigns because that's where we're getting a higher average ticket. And at the end of the day, more revenue to your bottom line. And that's what we should all care about.
What I like about looking at these two numbers is like, you don't, you no longer need to do return on investment like calculation really. You're just looking at these two numbers like, is this greater than the other one, by how much? And then you can just make your call that
Yep.
way.
Yep. I mean, I could create a metric that would be like the gap between them, right? And the bigger the gap, the better the channel. But that's really all we're saying here is I want to find my low customer acquisition cost. Wink, wink. Google Business Profile should always be your lowest customer acquisition cost channel in this case, right? It's usually a free or very small fee through an agency, and it's driving a ton of revenue. So
Yeah. Yeah. So simple always wins, how much am I paying for a customer? What's the average ticket? And then my next question, which you just kind of beat me to it, which is, hey, by the way, in your experience, what channel has the best relationship of customer acquisition cost and average ticket?
yeah, I mean, by far, Google Business Profile. If that's not set up and optimized, it's the biggest hole in your business. From there, I go LSA, PPC. If you're doing Facebook the right way, that's right in that same fight based on business goals, right? But the cool thing is you can't argue to me Facebook doesn't work if I can show you I've got a 20x return on investment, right? So Facebook kills it if done correctly.
What about like direct mail campaigns or something like that?
Don't even get me started. So we just partnered with a few different direct mail companies. So like they literally built us an API. So we've ingested, who's getting the mailer, the names, the addresses. We've ingested the campaigns, the spend, everything. So now I can look at direct mail the same way as I look at like Google Ads and Bing, right? And the craziest thing is, as a digital guy for the last 15 years, I am blown away with direct mail.
With how well it's doing.
Insane how well it is. Yeah,
That's what I've heard that from.
if I'm there's a lot more to come on this, because like we have a partnership we're launching now with MSI. I think they're like one of the larger providers, but I mean, we're seeing campaigns that, in July, they spent $7,000 on mailers or something like that. And it's up to 200 grand in revenue that's still coming in from the call tracking number on the mailer, right? But SearchLight can even go a step further and look at like, well, did they get the mailer and not call that? And did they convert through a different channel? And I can tie that whole story together to your question originally, right? About like the events.
Yeah.
So now the event of the direct mail going out, right? Now that's just another piece to the puzzle. So yeah, I'm a huge believer in direct mail, if done properly. And the same thing goes with Facebook, right? It's all about the audiences that you're actually sending the mailers to.
Yeah. And I would imagine the offer that you have.
Of course. But like, yeah, I mean, with Facebook, you don't want to be sending Facebook messages to people that are in dorms, or, you know what I mean? It's like, you want to make sure they're at least owning the home and like some basic criteria. And the same thing applies for direct mail.
Is direct mail beating LSA? Is it beating PPC?
I'm not there yet. It's so early. But what I was blown away with was the booking rates of like 90%. Because who's calling in from a direct mail unless they actually want to talk about a service?
Of course.
Right? Like, I mean, 20% of your calls from PPC are people asking for jobs. Nothing to do about it.
Yeah, I've got a stack of direct mail, and like I love, I mean, I don't know if I'm like the only one on that. I'm definitely not the only one on this, but like I'll spend a Saturday like, oh, Valpak came in, great. And it's almost like, oh, that's right. I was meaning to clean the carpets. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we can get those windows done eventually. It's almost like it's like a reminder of my to-do list. And I use I use the mailers as like kind of like a reminder, or, okay, cool. Now I can get this done. I got a coupon, save some money at the same time.
Yeah. And with SearchLight, you can measure direct mail up against Facebook, LSA, Google, and it's apples to apples, right? So now it's like, well, where am I getting my lowest customer acquisition cost? Imagine trying to pull that report together right now with 4 different agencies, one on Facebook, PPC, direct mail. With SearchLight, you would go to one report and just filter by customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, that's
a great campaign that's bringing in your customer acquisition cost lowest to highest.
Yeah. So one of the things, I have to say, so like with the Google business profile, one of the things that I've noticed is like a lot of times I think SEO companies get more credit than they actually deserve. And the reason why I say that, you smile, I guess you've had this thought.
Yeah, I got stories. Yeah.
Because like, you have so much, especially when you have like a really strong brand in an area, it's like people aren't necessarily finding you on keywords. They're finding you on your brand name. And so like, do you guys like have anything in place to kind of like control for that?
Based on your tagging with PPC, we can look at branded versus non-branded. I can look at accurate new versus existing customers. So like to your point, if I want to measure SEO and it's my money, I'm going to a time frame and I'm looking at new customers that came in from us, right? And then I'm also going to caveat that with, if I'm getting an increase in new customers from SEO and I'm also running traditional marketing like TV or radio or something, these are people that heard my brand before going to Google.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they searched me by brand instead of plumber near me. And they came in through Google Business Profile or whatever it was.
It's tough. It's tough to figure out. I'll just tell you, like, I don't know how much this helps as you develop, SearchLight. But one of the things that I look at is on Google Insights, they'll give you a breakdown of searches you've shown up for by keyword. And so this is like a lot of times I'll talk to a business owner like, oh man, I'm crushing it on Google Maps. We're getting so many calls from Google Maps. I'm like, oh yeah, really? Can you pull up your profile? And we'll look at the breakdown of searches that they show up for, and we'll find out that like 100% of their searches are brand name, but they
Mhm.
don't show up for the keyword plumber near me or plumber insert city or HVAC contractor. And I'll tell them like, hey man, like, yes, you're getting a lot of calls from your Google business profile, but you're not showing up for any keywords. You're really just
Yeah,
showing up for
yeah.
your brand name. So there is that
I
metric
would
there.
love to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I would love it if you could do that.
Keyword
But
versus branded SEO revenue.
that's what we look for internally. So, like, as we're building out our system, we track all of our clients portfolio wide as to like basically every metric that we get on Google Insights. But we'll look at total searches, and then we have a VA do this manually, find the branded searches, and so we have like non-branded keyword searches. So this way
Mhm.
we can kind of get like an idea of how much is that moving up, because that's really our goal, is to increase traffic for non-branded keywords and then increase the calls from that as well.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because to your point, if you've got a brand that's been, especially in our industry, it's been around for a couple generations, might not be too hard for an SEO company to come in and look like they're doing really well because the brand's got so much authority, right?
Yeah. So, like, if somebody wants to team up with you in Searchlight, like, what tools do they need to have in order for this to be effective? Because if they're just doing like pen and paper, you know what I mean, like as a
Yeah.
CRM,
No,
that's
we
not
need
going to work,
CRM
right?
and we need CRM and call tracking. Very simply put, the rest we can do on our own. So it's very,
A CRM, any CRM?
I mean, we're integrated with 10 of them. We're always doing more.
Oh, you are. I didn't know you had that many. What CRMs are you integrated with?
Service Titan, Sarah, House Call Pro, Field Edge, Service Monster, Service Minder. Um, we're doing AccuLinks in the near future. There's always more. I know I'm missing a couple, but
Okay.
pretty wide net.
All right, that's really good. Is that like updated on your website somewhere?
I can send you the list.
Yeah, yeah, because as I speak with people, that's you, or even like our existing client. I got off a phone call with a client. I don't know. Oh yeah, I was gonna say yesterday, but it's Monday, so I'm like, it must have been some time last week.
right.
But he's telling me, he's like, oh man, like, I don't know what's going on with phone calls, and I pull up Google Insights, and I'm like, dude, you like tripled with what you were getting on Google Maps, and this is again non-branded keywords. And I'm like, are you asking your people where they are you asking people where they come from? It's like, yeah, we ask every single person. I'm like, are you tracking it anywhere? And yeah. So, but he was using something else, which I'm gonna have to try to find. It was service something, but I've got it written down here.
Yeah, I mean, like, we can do it with or without APIs, right? I mean, we're again at our core, we're a data matching company, so we've done like we've integrated with out school or old school CRMs on a server in some guy's basement from the '90s.
Oh my gosh, it's
Uh,
hilarious. So these are the guys that
yeah,
you
so this is
integrate
kind
with.
of just like our quick look. If yeah, like some of and there might be a few more we have to add to this, but if you were to say like, what do you need to onboard with Searchlight, this kind of brings you right through it, right? It's like, well, who you're using as a CRM, and as you scroll down, it's like, all right, next step is add this tag to your website. And that tag you see right there, that doesn't change per website,
Yeah,
right? So once that's added, we can see all of the forms. And then from there, it's your call tracking,
yeah.
right? So this is call rail, what converts, call tracking metrics, or if you're just using Service Titan. And then last step here is Google Ads, LSA, Facebook. So like this is, we get read-only access to the campaigns, like to the MCCs. Right. So
Yeah.
usually like an onboarding for us for a single account is a quick call, getting some of this information. And once we have it, we're live in 5 days. We can
Yeah.
collect like SEO fees, right? If you pay $5,000 a month, we'll bake that into the data. So when you look at SEO, you can see returns from that.
Yeah. What chat tool do you like?
Um,
Are you seeing like any difference between any of them?
yeah, I mean the ones that here's The biggest problem with chat is how fast people are responding, right? So
Yeah.
I like the chat tools that have like AI built into them that allow you to respond to the forms immediately or the chats immediately. What I see in our data, because I have booking rate by conversion source. So I'll see a booking rate for a phone call for all of your phone calls is really good, but I'm like, why is your form booking rate 20%? And they're like, well, I answer the forms at the end of the day when we're not busy. And I'm like, that's costing you a lot of money. Right. And as even as a business owner myself, you know, it's funny. We like with our chat, like, you know, a chat will come in on SearchLight. And I'm like, shit, who's getting it? I'm busy. And we're all laughing because no one can get to it in time. And then next thing you know, the guy's off the website. And it's like, man, we just missed that. Thing
Yeah.
about that with plumbers and contractors are dealing with that every day too. So it's like to go to your question, whatever tools have that like response baked into it to help you book the job is where we see a big difference in the bottom line.
Yeah. If they just have some sort of automation, some sort of AI, so that people are getting timely responses. If you're leaving it up to humans, they're gonna fail eventually. You know, there's some sort of human error baked in.
Or just have a really good process for forms, right? Like I've asked this hundreds of times, what's your standard operating process when a form is submitted? And I've never heard a person say, we have a 5-step process. First is this, then they're always like, well, you know, I'm like, well, here's our problem. You know what I mean? And for your like for the like a key stat on why this is all so important, if 55% of your leads don't book, 75% don't buy.
Hmm.
Right? That's a fact across our data. On average, 75% of your unique leads are not buying your service. You might get an estimate, but you're not selling it. Right? So at the end of the day, if 75% of your unique leads are not buying your service and you're measuring success by cost per lead, that's the problem. I mean, that's where you're out, right?
And that's a combination of not responding to form submissions or chats, but it's also the quality of the CSRs as well.
What you're getting into is our business, right? Like we're building out CSR reporting right now to revenue, technicians revenue reporting, lead grading, AI lead scoring, right? Like all of this, because to your point, one of two things is happening. Either marketing isn't doing its job and the phone's ringing, but the leads aren't good, or the leads are good and you have a green CSR that's fumbling all these good calls and you're responding to forms 24 hours late. I don't care.
Yeah.
No agency is going to fix that. That's an operational problem, right? So that's why you need SearchLight to say, why is your booking rate on forms so low? Or why do these 3SRs like struggle booking these types of calls? Or why are you sending this technician to the house when they're not good at selling jobs? Like all of a sudden, from a marketer now, it's not just like a lever of cost per click and cost per lead. It's like I have way more of an insight around the business, and it's all about accountability. Like if your marketing sucks, we're going to know. But if your business sucks and you don't know how to manage leads, we're going to know that too, right? And now all of a sudden, you know the problem.
There's three parts to it also, because, you know, again, going back to those two metrics of cost per acquisition and average ticket, you know, like everything that you talked about that you were, you know, saying in terms of like responding to these leads, you know, booking these appointments with great CSRs, the quality of them, you know, with your marketing team and everything, that's going to be a lot of like cost per acquisition. But what about on the pricing side of things? You know, like what about on the average ticket thing? Like what are you seeing? What are you seeing over there?
Well, what do you mean? There's a lot I could talk about with average tickets, but the biggest at the end of the day, they vary so much, right? So like I lost my train of thought of what I thought you were going to say, but we do see a lot of people spending way too much to acquire the customer and not getting enough on the job, right? So like that's the first thing we would address together, making sure that our campaigns are actually profitable before we continue, right?
So are you seeing that? Like, how often are you saying to yourself, like when you're looking at those metrics, how often are you saying, and I saw your like face light up, you know, as I was talking. So I'm like, oh man, I hope we get to that idea. But, so how often are you seeing like the problems on like that first metric versus the second, the customer acquisition cost versus like their average ticket?
Customer acquisition cost is more of a problem, right? There's a lot of waste in marketing. We can address average tickets operationally, but that's only after we cut the bleeding, right? And we realize that, like, I mean, literally on average, there's always campaigns that just don't make money. You're losing money on it, right? And right now you don't know. So you're continuously doing it every month,
Yeah.
paying more to acquire the customer than you're getting for the average ticket.
Yeah.
So
And you're just bleeding money the entire time.
literally, and you just don't know, right? And that's the sad part, is you might have an agency that you trust, where we started this whole conversation. And as an agency, I always came from wanting to do the right thing, like nothing malicious,
Yeah.
right? But you only know what you know, and you only have the tools. So you're doing the right thing. Your partner, your business is doing the right thing, but at the end of the day, we're still wasting money, right? So like the first thing we need to do is get our marketing dialed in. Then we can tweak operationally. We can talk about prices increases, or this is what I was going to talk about earlier. Like maybe it's not marketing's fault if you're booked out 3 weeks and nothing's selling, right? These are things we need to be able to have data points on, so that we can have like educated conversations together. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and be talking about cost per click when we're booked out 3 weeks and we're spending more to acquire the customer they're getting on the job. And if you think about it, we're just not focused on the right thing.
Yeah. One question I have is, for SearchLight, like my understanding was that you guys provided just like the data, but like how else, or like, do you help the business in terms of analyzing this stuff? Is that like up to the agency that works with them? Like what kind of support is there?
Yeah, so we have two different support models. One is like we train you after launch and you're good to go, like you're on your own, right? You use the data, make the decisions, and a lot of agencies have smart people to take this and run with it. In addition to that, we have like a data analyst role at SearchLight, which is we don't ever manage the campaigns. We're not like managing building Google ad campaigns, but we're like literally a rep in your marketing department, right? So we're on the phone with your agency and we're making recommendations, and they're strong recommendations because we're using data and we're ripping apart everything that we're seeing, right? And at the end of the day, we just want to make more revenue. That's it, right? So it really is twofold. One is we're a SaaS product and you get it and you use it, and there's a support if you need it. Other is we have a data analyst that works with you on a weekly basis and just dives all in.
What's the price point for that?
$3,000 a month
Okay.
for a
All
weekly
right.
call.
Yeah. And so you basically, yeah, you want everything tied in, you get a weekly call. And it's funny because a lot of times the business owners, the problem or the frustration that I hear them say is like, I mean, they don't, it's almost like they don't know what numbers to trust, or they don't know like to trust what the agency is saying a lot of times. And so I can
Exactly.
see having like a data analyst as being very, very, very helpful. I do have a couple more questions. Kevin, do you have a hard stop in 4 minutes, or you got a
I
little more time?
yeah, I do. We could go quick.
Yeah. All right. So, oh goodness. Yeah. Of course I lost it.
I'll show you. I mean, one thing we're doing now, I was telling you, that's going to change a lot for us. Like the biggest problem SearchLight has is a lot of times even the agencies need someone at SearchLight to coach them through. It's a whole different way to optimize
Yeah.
and build a business. So what we've released is AI summaries. So basically it scans all the data on each report and it spits out takeaways and like things you should know. So it'll say to you like, hey, this campaign's customer acquisition cost is more than your average ticket. You should fix this or cut the campaign. And three
Yeah.
takeaways are you need to follow up more with your estimates because they're piling up and you're not selling them like you have been over the last 6 months or something, right? So
The,
for
the AI will give these recommendations.
all right. I mean, I could show it
Yeah.
to you right now, but yeah, like literally that. So like you think about whether you're an agency and you're new to your role and you're an account manager and you're like, whoa, Searchlight is way too much. You just press a button and boom, you're a hero. Like copy paste, you're a data analyst now. And
Yeah.
if you're a plumber and you're like going into a meeting and your boss is like, hey, I need this data, and you're like, this data doesn't exist. You just go into Searchlight, hit one button, and boom, it's right there.
That's
So
uh
it's
that's
easy.
awesome. So you I think you told me this number before. I don't remember what it is, but I know like it's incredibly high. And I wanted to see if we could share this with people, which was the the percentage of like your guys' retention at Searchlight, like how many people get
Uh,
this data and stay getting this data.
it's very rare for us to have a cancellation that's direct relationship with Searchlight, right? The value's there. It covers itself for a year, usually on our first call. Now, aside from that, we have like 20 agency partners where I might have Lesage heating like through an agency. And if they cancel that agency, therefore we lose
Yeah.
that account. Even some sign up directly after that. But yeah, at the end of the day, when we're solving a very expensive problem, right? It's costing businesses millions of dollars. And if you want to build your own Searchlight, and trust me, a lot of people have tried, it's millions of dollars in engineers, data warehousing costs, and then you're not even guaranteed an accurate product at the end of it, right? So it's like, hey, I can go that route, or Searchlight has a 3-month term for a few $100 a month, and we're all tied in, right? And we're
Awesome.
up and running in 5 days.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I think you've got a real amazing product over here. I continue to sing your praises and send
Thank you.
people your way for that very reason. Really appreciate the time. Don't hang up, by the way, but I really appreciate the time. And let's continue conversation, and maybe we'll do this another time, because I know there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike for Searchlight.
Yeah, I'd love to show you, man. I appreciate your time and the invite today. Thank you.